We of the angelic realms preserved the harmony in as many lands as we could. For thousands of years we exercised a benevolent stewardship over the warrior races. Many traditions still recall our era of stewardship as the age of the gods. But as your ancestors multiplied, gradually the lineage of the bird tribes receded. Gracefully we gave space for your cycle of learning to unfold. The few incarnate ones whose egos did still love and serve the spirits of God, quiet, peaceful people, took to the hills, the mountains, or the islands of the world when the warrior tribes became too troublesome in their native lands. In some of these tribes we were fully incarnate. In others our guidance was sought, but we were seen as external beings, separate from themselves. The former we guided from within, the latter from without. With them we retreated to the higher places, and, if needed, to higher places still. Ultimately, most of the gentle ones flew to the heavens to wait, choosing not to incarnate. But even during the times when we were not able to incarnate in all, we were still educating, teaching, and, as you will see, influencing the course of human events. After the rebellion, there remained still a few human tribes who refused to participate in the rejection of their stellar spirits. In the sand around our council fires, we would depict each of our faithful tribes as a small circle. Around these keepers of the light circles, we would then draw one great circle to represent the Great Spirit who included us all. We knew ourselves as the Angwi Hangwi, which means the people true to reality. Due to our attunement to the original instructions of the Creator, and due as well to the energy amplification that we experience through agreement among ourselves, earthly power was still very much in our hands. But some things cannot be coerced, and love for the truth is one of them. The cooperation of the egos had to be voluntary, or the human design would not work. Though we had the power to do so, eliminating the warrior tribes in some great battle and thereby driving them from the earth was not something we considered. Incarnate or disincarnate, the warrior tribes remained a part of us. Incarnate or disincarnate, they would continue to disrupt the emotional atmosphere of the collective consciousness that, with them, we shared. The physical level was the level on which the warrior people had fallen. It was the only level on which they could be made whole. Incarnate lives were required to teach them the folly of fear motivation. Nothing but earth experience could bring them to a time when a core of them would again turn their hearts to God. Their passionate spirits remained essential ingredients in our future global species. We had to accommodate them. We gave them the land surrounding the sea that is today called the Mediterranean. Elsewhere, we maintained our presence. But the warrior tribes were aggressive. They multiplied rapidly. Our way was to teach through patience and example, not through warfare and confrontation. So as millennia passed and they took over more and more of what is today Asia, Africa, and Europe, we gradually withdrew. In the end, there were only 2 islands where we were able to maintain a consistent presence into historical times. 2 islands, each an entire continent. Wild, uncivilized, as refreshing to us as the abundant fresh water that flowed living through their heartlands and rained amply upon their lush vegetation. Over these 2 continents we sustained a clear and protective vibrational field in which many tribes lived and prospered long after the rest of the human world had plunged into darkness and disorder. You of this present generation know little of what transpired in these lands. There was no history, no written record. The people of the bird tribes came and went off the face of the Americas without a single name being carved in stone, with not one stone head being raised in arrogance to look out over the sea. with not a single human bone left to note them in the mother soil, for they ascended, these tribes, and left no remains. The Americas, continents without turbulence, few records, few ruined cities. Of all the earth's lands, we remain incarnate here the longest. After the rebellion, a certain amount of warrior energy had penetrated throughout all the fields of thought and emotion that surround the earth, but in the Americas, our continental auras filtered out the most turbulent of these influences. On those rare occasions when excessive fear motivation did find its way into expression among our people, we would hold a meeting of the council. If the people were a danger to the sacred balance, they were asked to change their ways. If they refused, they were asked to leave. Those who left went willingly. They would not migrate back. They knew the decision of the council was fair and just. They knew that they had chosen behavior that was vibrationally incompatible with our continental emphasis, and so they would depart either by boat or by the great ice bridge to the north. Those who left America to settle other parts of the world knew why they were being banished. If they preserved birch bark or buffalo hide records or maintained an oral tradition, their descendants knew that a time would come when they would be invited to return, when what was broken would be made whole again, when what was lost would be found, when what was forgotten would again be remembered. Those of us who remained in America came and went peacefully, honoring our spirit selves, finding our balance with nature, living in harmony with the seasons and with each other. We were peace-loving tribes. We were not perfect, but we did not make a controversy out of every meal. We learned how to feel our needs in harmony with the earth and her creatures. We honored the land on which we lived. We saw the animals as our sisters and brothers. The thrust of our creative interest was biological. We created fruit and vegetable foods, potatoes, corn, beans, peanuts, squash, melons, sweet potatoes, pumpkin, yams of many shapes and sizes. We created new life forms to interpret sound and light in new ways, beautiful birds, intelligent creatures with whom we communed as fellow guests in the lodge of the Earth Mother. Our people knew the spirits of the plants and animals as equals and friends. There was still trial and error among us, fine-tuning here and there, but we had the opportunity then to fine-tune. Most of the human egos in the Americas remained true. Though the spirits of God were not fully incarnate in all, we were incarnate in many. We would keep the fear disease out of our island as long as human populations remained small and collective human consciousness was not making itself felt on a planetary scale. However, the disease was a part of our collective field of being, and the human populations attuned to fear grew rapidly in the millennia following the rebellion. Their vibrational influence became stronger with each passing age. By about 2,500 years ago, humans had multiplied sufficiently to signal the distinct beginning of a global human consciousness. And, not surprisingly, the fearful influences were felt more often in our lands. Our continental aura was weakening. The seeds of discontent began to sprout. I was one of a small group who took on the task of monitoring the growing influence of the warrior energy in the thought fields that surrounded the earth. When I saw the seeds of fear motivation begin to twist and warp the values of key Central and South American tribes, it verified what I had sensed. I knew the Europeans would soon be coming to American shores. I knew that we were approaching the cycle of purification, and that soon, in less than 2 millennia, it would be a single human world. Our period of continental isolation was rapidly nearing an end. So I made the